publicly funded education, transform curriculum and autonomy to teach, not test, education for all, and the support of unions. If I'm looking at that, I'm telling you, because this is what makes me excited, then what I see in we is our DNA, our dreams, how we nurture those dreams, and ultimately how we act upon those dreams, because what we see in we is literally the genetic code of American democratic practice. We don't see it in the mayor's office. We don't see it in the governor's office. Washington, D.C. We don't see it in ALEC. We don't see it any place but among we the people. I'm not even going to comment. But when I look at Tiananmen Square in 1989, and I look at Ferguson, Missouri in 2014, I got to tell you that there are pro-democracy rallies taking place right now here in the United States. We just don't see them that way. Because in a sense, there's another flavor of Kool-Aid that we've been drinking. We are so ready, rightfully so, to talk about the abuse of women in the Middle East. And we should. It is important. And we should celebrate the fact that this young girl stood up and fought for education. But why is it that the same people that want to talk about this and celebrate this and write that they should don't want to celebrate Philadelphia students for marching in the street for their teachers? I read the comments in the city paper. Those teachers ought to be put in jail. Those kids should be in school. I can't believe that the teachers would encourage that. You mean that we would encourage democracy? That we would encourage kids to vote with their feet for freedom? That they might actually take some of the lessons that we managed to teach even though we were supposed to be testing? To heart? Don't apologize for that. Our police look like an occupying army. Our schools look like prisons. Our democracy looks like a totalitarian regime. Now is the time for us to act. This is the fierce urgency now the Reverend Dr. Martin King talked about. Tomorrow is not acceptable. Yesterday is gone. All we have is this moment. All we have is each other. We can take heart from the fact that the battle in Kansas and the battle in Philadelphia and the battle in Ohio share certain consistencies, but, and I suggested this at the National MPE, let's be clear, the old PTA doesn't work. We got to rethink it. It's got to be national. It's got to be on Facebook and Twitter. We got to let these folks know whenever they mess with us, whenever they mess with us, that we're going to respond, and we're going to respond with such a mighty roar that they're not going to be able to ignore us. That we're going to be able to shake the State House in Harrisburg and the State House in Trenton and even the White House. That we're not going to be content with a black president, a Latina president, or a white female president. We don't want a president. We want justice. Let me wrap up. Oh, Alec. Oh, Alec again. Oh, Alec. We don't have any more room for American tragedies. At the turn of the century, America's inability to deal with working conditions led to tragedy after tragedy. During the civil rights era, the period before the lynching, it's an American tragedy because we can't on this issue. The stakes are too high. The prize is too great. Our children need that punishment. Christopher Eisgruber, who teaches at Princeton, has written, American government aspires to be both democratic and just. I love this. To insist that justice and democracy coincides makes heavy, but we may hope not impossible demands upon the American people. You can have a just democracy. You can. We can. Until evidence forces us to give up the hope for a just democracy, the constitutional enterprise compels us to treat that hope as reasonable. And when people believe that the hope is reasonable, you know what they do? They don't give up their seat on the 70
since 1896.
What people do, they say, oh, School Reform Commission has all the power, but so what? We're going to go march in the streets. You know what they do? They make sure that Tom Corbett can't come to the city of Philadelphia. You got to sneak in. I love that. That was great.
Start to sneak in.
What you want? What do our children deserve? I got to wrap up. What do our children deserve very quickly? Our children deserve not to get a zombie education. They deserve not to have to be out in the streets. What our children deserve is a word wall. I'm going to say that again. What our children deserve is a word wall that lays out the cornerstones of the type of education that we envision will empower them. That education must be democratic. It must be egalitarian. Our schools must be not just places of learning, but centers of service, because we're spelling out the word deserve. And by that I mean that our schools should be essential in the sense that they're not just places where kids take tests and are prepared to go to college or not, Arnie Duncan. What they are, the nucleus of communities. That's what they've always been. That's why they should be engaging. They should be respected. Stop already with the narrative of failure. Stop already with the challenges on teachers. It's interesting that you expect students to go to school and respect the very teachers that night by night on the nightly news, some politician stands up and blames for all the problems in the country. How do you expect young people to respect us and what we do if you constantly undermine us by talking about what we're not? And oh, by the way, respect our students as well. By not reducing it to a test. By not calling their schools failing. By not closing their schools. By not undermining their communities. By stop firing their parents. Stop robbing even the idea that they can go to college because there's not enough scholarship money for everybody. So what kind of game are you playing? Our schools should be versatile and they should be empowering. Let me say, I was going to go into this whole thing about the prison boom and the pipeline, but I don't have time for that. Where I want to end with you is with Chester Community Charter. We don't want to be cheaters, we want to be leaders. Period. That's what we want from our schools. We don't want to be online, we want to be real time. Ultimately, what we want is not for our schools to be to funnel the business and economic interests of corporations. We want our schools to reflect our DNA. We want our schools to empower our young people to perfect our democracy and this great endeavor begun so many years ago in this city by peoples whose names we venerate: Jefferson, Franklin, Washington. You got a National Constitution Center and a governor that has a nerve to impose a rule that is so undemocratic that it makes one sick to the stomach to think that it exists in the United States of America. Our DNA is the civil rights movement. I love this picture of Rosa Parks. Some of you know this joke already, but you know why that deputy is looking so closely at Rosa Parks' finger? Because I think he found Abigail Adams' DNA up under Rosa Parks' fingernail. Because what he found in Rosa Parks was a woman like my good friend Melissa Tomlinson, who's here from the Badass Teachers, who when Governor Christie was saying all this craziness about failure factories, Melissa said, well, it's a democracy and I have right to speak, so she went to see Chris Christie. Middle school teacher from Chris Christie don't know her from Adam. And when Chris opened his mouth, Melissa stepped up and said, excuse me, Governor, why do you persist in calling our school factories a failure? You know what he did? He yelled at her. You want to know why? Because he's a bully. Because he should have read that book, Everything I Needed to Know About Life I Learned in Kindergarten. But when Alec is funding you, you don't have to be responsive, you don't have to be respectful, you don't have to be civil, you don't have to act like you care about the people, you don't have to privilege democracy, you can be as nasty as you want to be, because at the end of the day, you believe that you can subvert the democratic process. Not so with us. This democracy is ours. This is our country. these are our schools. I said it today, I'll say it again, we're coming to take them back. We'll fight against poverty. We'll fight against injustice in all its forms. We'll fight against violence. We'll fight against indifference. We want our students to concentrate on why the United States is the world's leading jailer. That's what we want our students to think about. How do we do this better? Why are we warehousing human beings? Those are the great social issues that our students should be reflecting on, not how to fill out a bubble test. I'm out of time, but I would say, and I have a piece coming out in not the LA Progressive, but the Real Progressive on this. What would Martin Luther King say if he were alive today? I think if that statue they erected to him down in D.C. could speak, and I'd be the first one to run with that copy. But I think if that statue could speak, you find Martin Luther King doing exactly what this cartoonist portrayed him on. He'd be on his way to Occupy Wall Street. That was a couple years ago. Let me change that. He'd be on his way to Philly. He'd be right here. If he were here today, what would he say if he could walk through this door? He would say to you, almost always the creative, dedicated minority has made the world better. We, the Caucus of Working Educators, is the dedicated minority. The Badass Teachers Association is the dedicated minority. MORE is the dedicated minority. The American Federation of Teachers is the dedicated minority. We are the people. We will reclaim democracy. We will fight for justice. We are coming to take our schools back. Questions, or do you want to
take questions, please?
I'm going to have my colleagues from BATS come up. Is Denisha here? Dr. Jones? Aixa? I just want them to, because we're staying all day. We have things to learn from you. I mean, there are a couple of panels here I can't wait for. Like opt out, I'm all over that. These are my colleagues, Denisha, Aixa, and Mel Tomlinson. So if anybody has any questions, statements, comments, let's just talk for a few minutes. A few minutes that we have left? Yeah. A few minutes we have left. Nothing? Got my brain trust. I can't answer anything. Right there.
This is Frank. I'm from the Jesuit University here in Philadelphia, and my imagination is stimulated and I'm a little bit embarrassed to see the enthusiasm that the academic is bringing here. I'm curious if you could make some suggestions about how universities might plug into this effort and go shoulder to shoulder with teachers.
I'll start. I'm a professor at Howard University and just drove down. Sorry I was late, but it's 3 hours from DC. And I think for me, what works well is we use our mission, and all of this work ties into our mission. So it's really easy for me to put this in my courses when our mission is to eradicate the research that makes black and brown children failures and their families failures. So I think, and most schools might not have that broad of a mission as Howard, but you have something in there that speaks to educating all children, democracy, and so you use that and say, this is what I'm here for, you know, and I have to do this, and I think it works. I'm fortunate to have a wonderful Dean Fenwick, who supports the work of critical scholarship and critical research and advocacy, but if I didn't, I would use the school's mission to kind of force that on them and see what they do. And you know, some universities might not, but others what I learned is they like that one person does it. They're not going to make the whole faculty do it, but my chair is like, well, you do it, so that's great, and then the students will get it from you, and we don't have to worry about it. And I'll take that for now, you know, it works.
I have the same reaction as Denisha. I'm a Howard alum, but I went to Jesuit school. I went to the University of Scranton, so Pennsylvania is home for me. And as a product of Jesuit education and someone who recognizes the unique mission that the Jesuits tend to project, we in particular have an opportunity to use that mission to advance this notion of justice, particularly in education. And I do it all the time. I actually made a job change. I'm no longer chair of the history department and director of Black Studies. I'm now associate vice president of academic affairs. So I shouldn't be making speeches like this. But if anyone were ever to ask me a question about why I felt comfortable in doing it, I would simply point to the mission of our institution and say, we are obliged to move the needle on justice. This is what the Jesuits talk about. And so at the end of the day, the mission and identity of the college itself, or the university itself, with its appeal to cure personalities. The one I love is Jesuits love old Latin terms. So we have this thing called eloquentia perfecta, the good person speaking and acting justly. So today was just eloquentia perfecta. No, next, anything to add? Oh, right there.
You know what's been bothering me is, okay, so I've been a teacher, I'm 56, I've been a teacher since I've been in my early 40s. But in a previous life, I put money in politicians' hands, and I was a corporate political wheel in a very big corporation, until I couldn't stand it anymore. And so I've been watching this, having a public relations political, I've been watching this scenario play out for so many years. Glad to see that people are getting grassroots active, but there's so many large dollars and large corporate privatization, Wall Street, people to gain from all of this, shoving money down legislators' hands. And I'm looking, and it's been so frustrating for me as just a local teacher in a way, to watch this and not see, wait a minute, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of teachers, and there's lots of people in this country that are sympathizers or empathizers or realizers, if you will. And where is the organization that has an equal and opposing force in terms of public relations and political relations? Where is that? Because I don't know.
Right here.
And maybe you guys know your leaders. I spend my days with students, so I'd like to hear something.
I think I can speak to that a little bit. What we've created with BATS and working with Moore and working with we've created kind of that new wave of getting the message out there through social media and, like he said, ignoring the typical outlets that are poisoned right now. So, as we develop, we're creating those political committees that are going to start working towards trying to steer elections more for public education. We're creating and helping out with instances like this. Like the whole time he was on, I was on Twitter, and we have 14,000 Twitters. And that's what everybody needs to do. You need to attack those outlets that are not controlled, that the people have the control of, and utilize them to the best advantage. Any type of organization that's like this, any type of event that's like this, we all need to work together to share the message and say, hey, this is what this group is doing. Maybe you want to take this model or this idea and bring it to your state. I was at the New Jersey State Convention, and I had a booth, and we had over just 300 people alone sign up within 2 days. Something like that, somebody can do in another state. It's just these conversations that we continuously have, sharing ideas, trying again and again to see what takes until we're all brought together on the same page.
Also, I wanted to kind of both the college one and the second question. Colleges are being literally targeted for programs such as TFA, and a lot of people are starting to realize that their graduates are getting to a situation where they didn't anticipate, being dropped off after 5 weeks of training into a very difficult school, and many quit. This is not what the college is intended for them to do. So that pushing back against those type of scab training, that's what colleges need to do. Push back. Do not allow them to recruit at your school, because it's not teach for a while. And I'll put in another piece. It's really painful for a lot of kids to be told that you got a new teacher and these people leave and the turnover is big. And why is it that someone from Utah is qualified after 5 weeks to come into the South Bronx, and they're supposed to be better than anybody who is homegrown, pushing out teachers of color? So to see a whole entire school or school system, all of a sudden everybody's in their 20s and everybody's white, there's an agenda.
That's right.
Schools need to push back on that. Secondary, talking like this is great, but you can do stuff even on a small level. Not a lot of people feel like they can, but buy all those wonderful documentaries that are talking about this. Share it with small groups. Do screenings if you have the connection. Because we're preaching to the choir here. We all agree here. We're all like, yeah. But you need to inform others. And you need to build that understanding. Once you actually speak to someone and they get the idea, but they may think, oh, you're a teacher, you have you have a reason to feel this way. But when they start actually seeing the movie, seeing the literature, and connecting things, their minds change. We have to control the narrative. And if it means getting a screening together and inviting the ladies at the hair salon, okay, inviting the people at your church to see, standardized, to see any of those films, and there's more coming out, to talk about what's really happening, because those people will. Gossip is the best social media, is it not? Gossip is an incredible social media, because that's what Twitter is, gossip, in 140 characters.
Right.
Okay, that's what it is. And if you can take the power of word of mouth, because you have to change hearts one by one. You know, and people love to give information when they think they know something someone else doesn't know. Oh, you haven't seen this movie. You have to see this documentary. And so if you can empower a couple of big mouths, target them. Facts. No joke. Target them specifically. The people who are very boisterous, very social, like to get attention, those people, spread the word fast. Target those people. Inform them.
We have to end on that note, unfortunately, but I like that, target a bunch of big mouths. Yeah. Honestly, we are thrilled to be here with you today. It is my honor to be in the city of Philadelphia with and we're just looking forward to a great day, so thank you for having us. Yeah.